Hey there, this is Daryl from Jackson Fishing Kayaks, and we're going to continue tying some shad flies because they're starting to run. Down in Florida about maybe a month ago or 6 weeks, they started catching them down there, just waiting for them to start doing their thing up this way, and so thought we'd tie up some shad flies. So the fly that we're going to tie today is a shad dart. I understand maybe in North Carolina they call it the puff head. So we'll take a look at that fly and we will get tying. All right. Well, this is the shad dart or the puff head that we're going to be tying. This one here is a pink version. You can tie it in Chartreuse or orange or whatever color you want, but I'm going to tie this one in pink in there. And if you wanted to, you could make the head color the same color as the tail, but I'm going to be going with white. So let's take a look at get tying and take a look at the materials that we'll be using. For a hook, I'm going to use Mustad 3407 DT saltwater in a size 6. These flies you can tie anywhere, like a size 4, maybe a size 8. But I go on the small side, the size 6s. I don't know why, just because it seems to be the thing to do. For me, anyway. And we'll take the time to debarb the hook. You know, they don't stay on very well. I always have problems where I lose them, but hey, it's what I like to do. I like to challenge myself with debarbed hooks, whether it's saltwater, any kind of fish. And thread I'm going to use is going to be some fluorescent pink and 140 denier, and I'm going to go ahead and take the time to put that on a spool since it's not on there, and I forgot to do that. Alright, now that I got that threaded, sorry about that, we're just going to start this right back behind the eye, and we're just going to take it back a little bit on there. And for the eye, I'm going to use some brass eyes in nickel, medium size. And trouble find the separation there. And I'm gonna, like I normally do, I'll just measure that. I like to have the thread, you know, rest that bead right on top of the eye. And that's about where I want to start it. And that's usually how I do my Clouser minnows as well. And then that gives me room to break my thread on there. Let's start this again. And take a peek at the front of it. Make sure that my dumbbell eye is perpendicular. give it a few yoke wraps, that's what I call them, and then we'll don't know what's going on here. Sure breaking them today. Tied up a bunch of these and never had this problem with them. Take another peek. I'll add a little super glue since I'm having issues with that one. And we'll take our thread back to where the barb used to be, right about in that area. And I'm going to take some white calf tail or kip tail, whatever you have, which is probably the same thing, but who knows? I don't know. I don't know why they don't call it calf tail. Maybe you can comment and tell me why. And I'm just going to take just a pinch. You know, it's a small fly. I don't need a lot. Right here, about that much. And I'm going to cut it right at near the bone there. And then I'll clean out the underfur. And I want this tail to be just about the hook shank on there. I'll just trim it off. Or you cut it off afterwards. But I like to try to trim as close as possible. And I'm going to lift that tail up, and that's going to help keep it on top of the hook. The next material I'm going to use is some Flashabou Mirage. Seems like this is all the same materials, but that I'm using for all these flies, but different patterns. Kind of funny, isn't it? And I normally just cut a little corner. And then I pull them out like that. And I don't need all this. I just need to take maybe, I don't know, five or six of them. Now I'll wet them down to make them manageable so that they're stuck together. And then I'm just going to measure this so it's about just a little shorter than the tail on top. And again, I'm going to try to keep that flash on top of that hook. And I'm just going to give it a few wraps. And then I'm going to wrap over the top. I'm not going to take, because I'm going to wind this around that body to those eyes. And then I'm going to take my thread up. And I'm going to park it right in front of the eyes, right there between the dumbbell eyes and the eye of the hook. And then to help secure that, I'm going to put a little hard as Hall on there. And then I'm just going to wrap this forward to give that little body a sparkle. And I'm going to wrap it a couple times. I'm going to wrap it up and back. Locked in a fiber there. Just to build it up a little bit. And then I'm going to tie that there, flip it over a little bit. And pull it back to lock it in. Trim that off. And then I'm going to give it a few wraps back behind here. And to make the puff head, I'm going to use some ultra chenille in standard fluorescent pink. And I won't cut it off. I'm just going to use the whole thing because it's not using a lot, and that way I'm not creating any waste. So I'm just going to tie in that tip right there and advance my thread forward. And then we're going to go and we're going to make the puff. So I'm going to crisscross over the eyes. I'm going to come back around the back of it. And then I'm going to try not to crowd the eye. And then I'll pull this back. And we'll trim this off. Create that nose here, a pink nose. And give it a whip finish. And then I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive on the thread for another whip finish. And there we have it, a puff head. Pretty simple to tie. Got a little flash. On going there. So that looks good to me. It'll catch a shad. I hope you found that fly challenging. Maybe not really. I don't think it's challenging. I think it's pretty simple. But give it a try. If you're in an area where there's the American or hickory shad, maybe blueback herring that migrate from the salt water up rivers to do their spawning, I hope that you get out and try for some shad fishing. But we still have a few more flies to tie in the shad series. Just might find something interesting. The next fly will actually be a bonefish fly that's used for shad. It's called the Nasty Charlie, Crazy Charlie, I don't know. But anyway, we're going to tie up some of those in the same size. But if you want to make the hooks a little bit bigger, you could be tying them for this wintertime redfish, like in a size 4, maybe a 2, and maybe even go bonefish with them. But we'll be tying them on a size 6. All right, I'm Daryl, and we will see you on the water.